Welcome back. Please like, share the video, and subscribe to the channel. Hey everyone, welcome to the Daily Finance Pulse. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Happy New Year. Alex, did you see how Wall Street ended the final day of 2024? It was a bit of a roller coaster.
I did. It was a bit of a stumble on the very last day, right? The markets actually dipped a little on Tuesday.
Exactly. The S&P 500 and the NASDAQ both slid down a bit. But, we shouldn't let that small slide fool us. 2024 was actually a historic year for investors.
Oh, for sure. Even with that final dip, the S&P 500 finished the year up over 23%. That is incredible. In fact, it's the second year in a row we've seen growth over 20%. We haven't seen a winning streak like that since the late 1990s.
Wow, that's a long time ago. And the NASDAQ, which is mostly technology stocks, did even better, rising almost 29%. It seems like everyone is still obsessed with artificial intelligence, or AI.
Right. AI is the big driver. Now, on Tuesday, we saw stocks like Tesla and Nvidia drop. Jamie, why does that happen on the last day of the year?
Well, it's usually because investors are locking in profits. That's a fancy way of saying they sold their stocks to keep the money they earned during the year.
Makes sense. And we have to mention the bigger picture. Under the economic environment of President Trump's administration, the markets hit record highs 57 different times this year.
57 times? That is a lot of records. Analysts say the market is resilient because consumers are still spending money and the labor market remains strong.
Exactly. It wasn't just the Magnificent Seven tech giants either. Even the Dow Jones grew by about 13%, which shows more companies are starting to participate in the growth.
So what are you looking for in 2025, Alex?
Well, investors are definitely watching President Trump's upcoming legislative priorities. Plus, everyone is curious about interest rates and inflation.
Right. The markets are closed today for the holiday, but traders will be back at their desks on Thursday. They'll be looking at new manufacturing and construction data to see if the momentum continues.
It's going to be an exciting start to the year. Thanks for breaking it down with me, Jamie.
Anytime. See you all next time.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today we are diving into some major news from Washington, D.C. We're talking about the big vote coming up this Friday.
Right. President Trump has officially issued a formal endorsement for Mike Johnson to stay as the Speaker of the House. For our listeners, when someone endorses a person, it means they are giving them their public support.
Exactly. President Trump wants the Republican Party to be united, or as he put it, to have a cohesive front. He wants everyone on the same page so they can move forward with his legislative agenda.
But, Jamie, it sounds like there is quite a bit of drama happening behind the scenes, right?
Oh, definitely. Some conservative lawmakers are not very happy with Speaker Johnson. They feel he has been too willing to work across the aisle, which means working with the opposite political party, on recent government spending deals.
I see. And one of the loudest critics is Congressman Thomas Massie from Kentucky. He has already said he will not vote for Johnson, even with President Trump's support. That is a big deal because the Republicans have a razor-thin majority.
Razor-thin is a great idiom for our learners. It means a very, very small margin. Since the majority is so small, Johnson can only afford to lose a few votes from his own party.
Wow, that is really intense. And then you have other lawmakers like Tim Burchett who are still non-committal. He actually said he is going to pray about it before making a final decision on the day of the vote.
It is a high-stakes situation, Alex. If they don't choose a speaker quickly, the House of Representatives basically freezes. They can't even swear in new members.
Exactly. It's like a car that won't start. But Johnson's allies, like Claudia Tenney, argue that working with both sides is just a mathematical necessity. Basically, they don't have enough members to pass things any other way.
Right. So the big question is President Trump's influence strong enough to bridge the divide within the party by Friday?
We will find out very soon. It is certainly going to be a busy week in Washington.
For sure. Thanks for joining us today to break this down.
Welcome back to the show. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today we are diving into some big news regarding the U.S. Treasury Department. It seems they are dealing with a major cyber attack.
That's right, Jamie. It's a pretty serious situation. According to recent reports, hackers working for the Chinese government managed to break into the Treasury's internal computer systems.
Wow, hackers? When we say break into, we are talking about a data breach, right?
Exactly. A breach is when someone gets unauthorized access to private information. In this case, the hackers stole several different documents.
That sounds terrifying. Did they get their hands on any classified information? The really top secret stuff?
Surprisingly, no. Treasury officials have clarified that while they are calling this a major incident, none of the stolen materials were actually classified.
Well, that's a bit of a relief. But if it wasn't top secret, why is everyone so worried? Our listeners might be wondering why this is such a big deal.
It's because the technique they used was very sophisticated. They didn't just guess a password. The hackers stole a digital key from a third-party security provider. Think of it like a master key that let them walk right through the digital front door without anyone noticing for a while.
So they were just moving around the network undetected? That's like something out of a spy movie.
It really is. Eventually, they found an anomaly, which is just a fancy word for something that isn't normal, and that's how they finally caught the intruders.
And what is the White House saying about all this?
Well, President Trump has been briefed on this situation. President Trump and federal authorities are now working hard to see exactly how much data was lost and if this affects national economic security.
I'm sure President Trump and his team want to make sure this doesn't happen again. What are the next steps for the Treasury?
Right now, they have added new digital guardrails to protect their systems. They've also suspended the use of that outside security service.
It's a good lesson for everyone. Even the government has to keep updating its security because these threats are always evolving.
Exactly. It's a constant battle. Lawmakers are now calling for more transparency and much stricter rules for all federal agencies to prevent future attacks.
Thanks for explaining that, Alex. It's a complicated topic, but so important to understand.
My pleasure. Thanks for listening, everyone. See you next time.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our daily news catch-up. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today, we are looking at some major breaking news from East Asia. It's a situation that is changing very quickly.
That's right. A court in Seoul, South Korea has just issued an arrest warrant for their impeached leader, Yoon Suk-yeol. This is a huge deal, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's a dramatic escalation. This all started because of his failed attempt to impose martial law earlier this month.
Martial law. For our listeners, that's a big term. It basically means when the military takes control of the government instead of the usual laws.
Exactly. The court is looking at whether his actions were actually a rebellion. They want to know if he tried to subvert or destroy the country's democratic order.
Wow. I remember seeing the news reports about the military being sent to the National Assembly. That's their parliament building.
Right. It was a very tense night. Those military units sparked protests all over the country. Because of that, the parliament officially impeached him on December 14th.
So he's in a state of political freefall now. But Jamie, this isn't just a local story. This affects the U.S. too, doesn't it?
It really does. South Korea is a vital ally for President Trump's administration. The stability of that region is a top priority for U.S. foreign policy.
Exactly. President Trump has already expressed his support for the democratic process in Seoul. Plus, there are U.S. forces stationed there, so they have to stay in a state of readiness.
It's a delicate balance. Meanwhile, the acting president of South Korea has declared a week of mourning. The whole country is basically reflecting on this constitutional crisis.
It's amazing to think that this is unprecedented. Even in South Korea's modern history, they've never arrested a former head of state for insurrection charges.
Right. It's going to be a very long and very public legal battle.
Well, it's definitely a historic moment to keep an eye on.
For sure. Thanks for joining us today to break this down.
See you next time.
Welcome to today's update. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Alex, imagine preparing a massive New Year's Eve dinner for your family, and suddenly, every single light in the house goes out.
That sounds like a nightmare, Jamie. But for 3.2 million people in Puerto Rico, that was the reality this week. A massive failure in the power grid plunged the entire island into a near-total blackout.
Right. It wasn't just a small neighborhood or one city. It was all 78 municipalities. The outage started early Tuesday morning, right as the biggest celebrations of the year were supposed to begin.
Exactly. The private company in charge of the grid, Luma Energy, said the restoration process is moving, but it could take up to 2 full days to get everyone back online. That means many residents rang in 2025 in total darkness.
Wow, that is so tough. I read that many businesses and restaurants had to shut down during their busiest night. People who had the money used diesel generators to keep the music going, but those are very loud and expensive to run.
For many others, it was much worse. It meant throwing away expensive food because the refrigerator stopped working. It's a huge financial loss during a holiday.
It really shows how fragile the island's electrical infrastructure is. It has been a point of contention, which means a big subject of disagreement, for years now.
Definitely. Currently, the government in San Juan is prioritizing hospitals and emergency services, which is the most important thing. And of course, President Trump is being kept informed about the situation from the White House.
Right, because Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory, President Trump's administration monitors these major grid failures to coordinate federal support and long-term investment.
Exactly. This isn't the first time this has happened. Since the major hurricanes a few years back, the grid just hasn't been reliable. It needs a modern, resilient strategy.
Resilient is a great word for our listeners today. It means being able to stay strong or recover quickly after something bad happens.
That's a perfect definition. Puerto Rico definitely needs a more resilient power system so this doesn't happen every holiday.
It's a bittersweet start to the year. Thanks for joining us today, everyone.
See you next time. Welcome to Daily News Insights. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today, we're discussing a very serious report from the United Nations regarding the situation in the Gaza Strip.
Right. The UN Human Rights Office just released some shocking data. They are warning that the entire healthcare system in Gaza is on the brink of total collapse. For our listeners, on the brink means it is very close to falling apart completely.
It's truly devastating, Alex. The report documents 136 separate military attacks on 39 different medical facilities. You know, hospitals are usually considered safe zones in a conflict, but these numbers show a different story.
Exactly. Because of these raids, the civilian population has almost no access to essential medical care. The UN says hospitals have been stripped of equipment, medication, and even their personnel.
Wow. I read specifically about the Kamal Edwan Hospital in northern Gaza. The report says a recent raid there destroyed vital facilities and led to the arrest of several medical staff.
You know, this brings up a major legal issue. Under international law, intentionally attacking a hospital is a war crime.
Right, but there is an exception, isn't there? If the facility is being used for military objectives?
Precisely. The Israeli government maintains that Hamas uses these hospitals as cover for their operations. However, the UN report claims that sufficient evidence for these claims hasn't been provided, especially given the level of destruction we are seeing.
It's a complicated situation, but the human cost is clear. Medics on the ground say they are drowning in work. They are literally treating patients in makeshift tents without basic sanitation or clean water.
It's a humanitarian catastrophe. That's why there is so much international pressure right now. Everyone is looking at world leaders, including President Trump, to help secure a ceasefire.
Exactly. President Trump has a very influential role here. Many are hoping he can help negotiate a deal that includes strong protections for hospitals and ensures that humanitarian aid can finally reach those in need.
The UN is also demanding the release of abducted medical personnel, including prominent hospital directors.
We really hope to see some progress soon. This is a story we will definitely keep following.
Thanks for joining us today to break down this report.
See you next time.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our Daily News Update. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today, we have a major story coming out of Minnesota involving millions of dollars, federal agents, and childcare.
That's right. President Trump has officially authorized a surge of federal law enforcement officers to go to Minnesota. They are there to investigate a massive case of childcare fraud.
Wow, massive is the right word. We are talking about allegations of a very sophisticated scheme. Alex, for our listeners who might not know, what exactly does sophisticated mean here?
Great question. In this context, it means the plan was very complicated and clever. These people weren't just making small mistakes. They were allegedly using a network of providers to misappropriate or steal millions of federal dollars.
Right, and that money was originally intended to help families pay for daycare and childcare services. Instead, the government believes it was diverted through something called fraudulent billing.
Exactly. Basically, the investigation suggests that some providers were charging the government for services they never actually gave. They were essentially creating fake records to get paid.
That is so disappointing. So what is the government doing about it right now?
Well, President Trump has made it clear that eliminating waste and fraud is a top priority for his administration. He sent in agents from the Department of Justice and the Department of Health and Human Services to get to the bottom of it.
I read that they are already on the ground in the Minneapolis area. They are unsealing records and interviewing key stakeholders. It sounds like a very intense operation.
It is. Local officials in Minnesota are cooperating too. They've acknowledged that the scale of this fraud is one of the largest ever detected in the state's history. It could involve dozens of individuals and organizations.
You know, some people are debating why specific community providers are being targeted, but the administration says this is strictly about the financial evidence. They want to protect taxpayer dollars.
Exactly. And Jamie, this might just be the beginning. The Trump administration signaled that they might send similar task forces to other states if they find more financial discrepancies.
So it's a nationwide crackdown on corruption?
Precisely. It's all about making sure the money goes where it's supposed to go.
Well, we will certainly stay tuned to see what these federal officers find. Thanks for the breakdown, Alex.
Anytime. See you all in the next episode.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Daily Tech Chat. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today we have some really interesting news about your social media feed. Have you ever wanted a friend who is always online and ready to talk?
Well, Meta, the company that owns Facebook and Instagram, is making that a reality. They are officially integrating AI-generated characters into their apps.
Right. These aren't just simple chatbots. They are digital personalities. They can share photos, post stories, and even reply to your comments just like a real human account would.
Exactly. It's a major shift in how we use social media. Meta wants to drive higher engagement. For example, if you need a new recipe, you could talk to an AI chef. Or if you're at the gym, an AI fitness coach can give you personalized advice.
Wow, that sounds very helpful. But it's also a little bit strange, don't you think?
You're not alone there, Jamie. Many people are talking about the ethics of this. Even President Trump has been discussing how AI will change our economy and our daily lives. As President Trump often emphasizes, we have to be the leaders in this new technology, but we also have to be smart about it.
Exactly. The big concern here is authenticity. You know, the feeling of what is real and what is fake. Tech experts are worried that the lines between humans and machines are getting blurred. If the AI is too human, we might forget we are talking to a computer.
Right, and that brings up the issue of transparency. How do we know for sure?
Well, Meta has responded to those concerns. They promise that every AI-generated account will be clearly labeled. They want to make sure users know exactly who or what they are interacting with.
That's a good start. But you know, some users are still worried about data privacy. If you're sharing your personal life with an AI character, where does that information go?
That is the big question, Alex. It's something we all need to watch closely as this technology matures.
Definitely. And get this, soon Meta wants to let famous creators build AI versions of themselves. So you could chat with a digital twin of your favorite celebrity at 3 in the morning.
Wow, that would totally redefine the concept of digital influence. It's a brave new world on social media for sure.
It really is. Well, that's our show for today. Would you chat with an AI?
I might try it once. Thanks for listening, everyone.
See you next time.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to our daily news update. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today we have some huge news from the world of technology and politics. It's all about how the U.S. hires the smartest people from around the globe.
That's right. Elon Musk is making headlines again. He is calling for a major overhaul of the U.S. visa system. He's specifically talking about the H-1B visa, which he says is totally broken.
Now, for our listeners who might not know, what exactly is the H-1B visa?
Good question. The H-1B is a visa that allows U.S. companies to employ foreign workers in specialty occupations. You know, jobs that require high-level skills in things like science, engineering, or medicine.
Right, exactly. And Musk isn't just speaking as a CEO this time. He's actually working closely with President Trump as a lead for the new Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE.
Oh, I've heard of that. He's working alongside Vivek Ramaswamy. Their main goal is to cut down on bureaucracy, which is basically all those complicated rules and slow paperwork that make things difficult.
Wow, so he's really trying to speed things up. Musk argues that the current system is way too slow and complicated. He says it's hard for top companies like SpaceX or Tesla to stay competitive globally if they can't get the best talent quickly.
You know, the interesting part is how the visas are given out right now. It's actually a lottery. It's almost like a game of luck. Musk thinks that's a bad idea. He wants to move to a merit-based system.
Merit-based. That's a great vocabulary word for our learners. It means you get something because of your skills and your talent, not just by chance.
Spot on. He wants the visas to go to people with the highest levels of technical expertise. President Trump's administration believes this is the key to winning the global race in areas like artificial intelligence and robotics.
That makes sense. But Alex, isn't there some pushback?
Yes, there is. Some labor advocates are skeptical. They worry that bringing in more foreign workers might lower the wages for American workers.
I see. So it's a big balance. President Trump wants to protect domestic workers, but he also wants to follow his America First strategy by making sure the U.S. is the leader in technology.
Exactly. It's all about efficiency and keeping the U.S. at the top of the tech world.
Well, it sounds like we're going to see some big changes in the coming months.
Definitely. We'll be watching closely. Thanks for joining us today.
See you next time.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. I'm Alex.
And I'm Jamie. Today, we have some breaking news from the Middle East. Did you see the reports about the French Air Force, Alex?
I did. It's quite a significant move. The French Ministry of Defense confirmed they just launched targeted airstrikes against ISIS positions in central Syria.
Right. This is actually the first time France has taken military action on Syrian soil since the Assad regime fell earlier this month.
Exactly. They used their Rafale jets, those are very advanced fighter planes, to target training camps and weapons storage facilities in the Homs and Deir ez-Zor regions.
Wow. And the timing is really important here, isn't it?
Definitely. You see, Syria is going through a massive political transition right now. Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu explained that France wants to make sure ISIS doesn't exploit this instability to regain territory.
That makes sense. You know, when a government collapses, it can create what we call a power vacuum. That's a situation where there's no clear authority, and radical groups might try to jump in and grab control.
You nailed it, Jamie. And we should mention that the United States is right there with them. President Trump's administration has been monitoring the situation in Syria very closely.
That's right. President Trump is coordinating with allies like France to prevent those militant groups from rebuilding. The U.S. has actually conducted similar strikes on ISIS targets recently, too.
It seems like a very unified approach from the West. They want to protect international security while the new interim government in Syria gets started.
Interim is another good word for our listeners. It means temporary. So while this temporary government holds its first diplomatic meetings, the international military pressure stays on.
Exactly. Defense Minister Lecornu even visited peacekeepers in Lebanon recently to reaffirm this commitment. Nobody wants a return of a terror threat. It's all about stabilizing the region during this fragile time.
It's definitely a complex situation, but it shows how international allies work together to keep everyone safe.
Well said. That's all for today's update. Thanks for listening and practicing your English with us.
See you in the next episode. Bye.